Okay, all good. Well, quick turnaround. Just walked off the practice field and kind of turned the page to a brand new opponent, another challenging opponent on the road, but excited about the opportunity. Friday night, these guys, our guys, I'll start with that. Went to work today, felt good about what we got accomplished. We just moved everything up one day, and so we had a good kind of 2-hour practice out there, guys moving around, and we'll be back to our rhythm tomorrow. When you look at Oregon, explosive offensively, quarterback's a good player, accurate with the ball. He might be leading the country in completion percentage, and they got some athletes that he's throwing it to. Flip it around, got a solid defense. I look at those guys, they just continue to improve. You look from game 1 to game 1, I think 4, those guys have continued to improve and played really, really well against UCLA, held them pretty much throughout the entire game. So big time challenge, tough atmosphere. Know the place that, it's definitely an exciting fan base that feels like they impact the game. And so these are the type of games you love playing in. With that, questions?
Jonathan, you said everything moved up the day. I was just wondering, I know you guys played a Friday game earlier, but that was the opener. Just how that, walking off the field Saturday night to this week, how that changes anything?
Well, you just kind of, we definitely looked at the game in the morning on Sunday, but then you flip the script pretty quick and you transition to your next opponent. And so we were, late into the night on Sunday game planning and prepping for what we got done today.
Jonathan, is it bizarre for you to be facing an opponent that's sort of been ingrained in your culture since you were a player as the rival? They hated it from a place that doesn't have that same relationship with them, yet you've got coaches on your staff. You've got one who was the coach there last year, but you've got coaches on your staff who came with you, players that came with you. Can you explain that dynamic and what it feels like?
Yeah, I think just a little bit. Played Oregon when I was at other universities as a coach too, and so kind of been through this before. That you had a different place and connections. We know, through experience, kind of how tough it is, that atmosphere and where we're playing at, and so we're going to just try to prep our guys for a tough road environment.
I'm wondering, for kind of off that, how do you kind of separate the emotion of what the rivalry means to you from Oregon State's perspective and kind of take that maybe neutral look at it? I think you kind of touched on it some last year, that you kind of got to remove yourself a little bit.
Well, yeah, and again, once the thing's kicked off, you're approaching it as, as a coach of what can preparing the guys, and then throughout the game, you get locked in on the game. And so, and it's not just myself. Like you said, we got some other guys with connections to the place and all of that. And once it's kicked off, it's a college football game that you kind of emotionally approach it the same.
Jonathan, your knowledge of the Oregon program, does that help Michigan State more than it helps them knowing, hey, we know what the Smith program is?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street. You look at it that way. Obviously, their schemes the last couple of years have been consistent, and so we've studied and game planned against, and that's a two-way street. Same with us offensively. They've been able to kind of know, and again, the offenses aren't exactly the same year in and year out, right? They're always developing, but I don't know if there's one side gets an advantage with it.
I had one other, I might as well ask it now. You'd been so good at getting to the quarterback, affecting them, getting tackles for losses, and Saturday he had a lot more time. Mm-hmm. Could you tell what that was? Was it just better protection?
Yeah, credit to those guys. They did a good job, and you got to pick your poison a little bit, how much you want to pressure, and they've got some, talking to Ohio State, so much talent on the outside that you expose yourself to a lot of one-on-one when you do that, and so it was a balance of, they did a nice job, and us trying to continue to mix up our looks.
Post-game, Captain Nate Carter's comments about what he and his teammates would talk about in the locker room as far as what they need to do going forward, kind of referring to the player-led team aspect. Can you talk about the dynamics between the player-led aspect and the coach-led aspect of your team right now?
Yeah, I think that, on the coaching side, you want to be able to kind of share the vision of what it needs to look like, but then, pass the ownership to the players. And these guys have, I don't think as a coaching staff, we're over-coaching these guys because we've got some leadership and some belief, and they know and they want to play really well. And that's why I do describe us as player-led.
You left Oregon State, and obviously Oregon left the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 kind of started imploding and stuff like that. I'm just curious if there's any like type of survivor's guilt for the players or the coaches or the programs that like have left the Pac-12 and kind of left behind like Washington State and Oregon State. And I know that they're obviously playing in different situations now, but do you know what I'm trying to ask?
I guess, that conference was a historical conference of champions, and that's painful when that kind of goes away. There is some pride and grit to the two great places that are still there, Washington State and Oregon State, and so they play at a high level. They're playing at a high level this year. And so I think a lot of us, I don't know what regret, but just do remember how great that conference was and know how good those two universities are.
And could you also describe your relationship with Dan Lanning again? You were at rival schools for a while, and you're an offensive-minded coach, and he's a defensive-minded coach as well.
Yeah, I think Dan's a really good coach. I got a bunch of respect for him. We're not talking every day, but enjoy our conversations when we gather at meetings and whatnot. He's done a great job there, and he'll present another challenge with his team. Those guys play hard, schematically sound, and that's just the MO of his program.
Jonathan, I'm wondering, I know a condensed weekend here for you, but when you did watch Ohio State back, anything stuck out to you that didn't really resonate Saturday night that was different once you were able to watch it, and that really was like revealing, I guess, that you didn't notice in real time?
Yeah, I think in general, I thought our protection was a step better than watching it. We had some leakage where I was just more impressed with Aiden standing in there making some accurate throws. That jumped on me on the film. Looking at us on defense on third down, we had some opportunities that could have changed to get off the field. That showed up a little bit.
Jonathan, I was wondering, we saw Maverick Hansen, I think Malik Spencer, Angelo, any of those guys long-term injuries?
Nothing out of the game long-term. We're definitely getting to that point, 5 straight games, bumps and bruises, kind of mid-season healthy, but nothing long-term.
And then I should have asked you this last week probably, but the 4-game redshirt rule, I was just wondering what your approach is to it with these guys. If there's anybody that you've decided, all right, we're just going to shut you down to save a year, if anybody's making individual decisions.
We tried to be strategic on knowing that there's 4 and not just spending all 4 of them in the first 4 games. And so, we're beginning to have conversations with a guy or two that's played in 1 or 2 because we want to have available guys as the season goes on. Just talked about the injury end. So we tried to be, like I said, not just spend all 4 games the first 4.
Kind of goes into what I wanted to ask you about Rakeem and Rustin getting the snaps that they did, how important that was and what you saw from that, but also the other guys in the secondary with Brinson and Denson. Denson played quite a bit, it seemed like.
Yeah, Denson's going to be playing. He's been playing a little on special teams, and he actually did a nice job defensively with a couple of tackles. The 2 old linemen, it was good experience for them. I thought they battled out there. We're going to keep pushing that to see if those guys are one of the best 5 we can put out there. Stanton took some reps today, so by the end of the week, we'll know where that 5s are at. But kind of liked how Rakeem Rustin battled out there against a really good D-line.
Jack Velling had said at media days back in the summer that there was a little bit of a bitterness when Oregon State was left out of the expansion. Does that play a factor at all in this upcoming game, if not for you, for the players?
Yeah, I don't think so. Again, there's plenty to get motivated for what we've got going. A conference game, it's still kind of early in conference play. We're on the road. I don't think any of that's on the forefront of our mind.
Jonathan, I guess since we are talking about it, when the Pac-12 is kind of making a little bit of a resurgence with some other teams, what's that like for somebody with familiarity from that region? What's that like to see?
Well, I look at those teams. Those teams have played really good. I think about football. Those guys have beaten multiple teams throughout the years. That's good football. I coached at Boise State. Those are good football teams.
What I wanted to ask mostly is, I don't know, again, how far you're able to go back. When you look at Oregon, though, it seems like the last couple weeks they've improved, from early on. Just what do you notice as a difference from early to these last few?
Yeah, I think every team's a little bit different each time you play, and I credit to those coaches. They've continued to get better. Early on, they were explosive. Look at Boise and special teams, a couple huge explosion plays, and then they've tightened some details up and improved in week 3 and definitely in week 4.
So, to that point, I guess what have you seen from Dylan Gabriel over there and how he's operated, and then
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the special teams, punt return and a kickoff return touchdown. Both.
Yeah. The two returners are explosive. They block the thing well. Schematically, they do a nice job on special teams, kind of stressing you, giving you different looks. Dylan Gabriel, I go again, accuracy, not just completing the pass, but where he's placing the ball so they can catch and run, quick decisions, really good player. I mean, he's athletic. He can run. He's got a long couple carries on tape already, and so you can see the experience and talent. And he looks very, very confident and comfortable in that system.
I'm wondering how much muscle memory there really is from a year ago with all this stuff with the portal and guys coming and going. I mean, it was your last game at Oregon State was facing those guys, but how much different are they in the course of those couple months?
There's some the same, some differences. I think about the way you game plan them. And so, we're definitely watching a lot of tape, not just the 4 games. We're watching previous season and going back on our own notes to try to put a great plan together.
I was wondering what you saw to Jordan Turner on Saturday night. He had the fumble that was a forced fumble and recovery that was called back. He had the interception, and he looked like he had himself a good game.
He did. He was impacting things, physical, flying around, playing with emotion. The interception was huge. Even the way he picks the thing and he runs down the sideline. He's great ball security with it. Nearly gets the fumble out. I get it. Looked like he was down, but he was flying around out there.
So Ohio State rolled up a lot of yards. They're going to do that against a lot of people. But did you feel good that you didn't allow those 70-yarders
Yes.
that they were showing against Marshall and everybody else?
We tried to be intentional of not giving it like that 70, 60 yards. They had a few explosive plays. I think in one run, first and 20, popped out for about 30 or so. But that's a really good team. Credit to them by executing and finishing drives for touchdowns. That's what we did. We moved the ball. We didn't finish like them.
But an accomplishment there to keep 11 guys on defense on the same.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, everyone knows those guys are pretty good and explosive. But again, our bar, we want to be continue to raise to where we can play dominant defense against whoever we play. We're not quite there yet.
And your run offense, your first 2 tailbacks, I think, averaged about 4.1 yards per carry. Weren't able to get a lot of carries because of the way the game unfolded,
Yeah.
I would imagine. But some progress there in the run game?
I think there was some flashes. I mean, the way we opened it up, Nate, the first carry of the game, got some crease. K-Ron fell forward multiple times. Still had a couple of negatives on there. Like you said, the game kind of got to a point where we were throwing a little bit more, and really didn't stay on the field long enough in the second half. You look at our total snaps, we had 50 total snaps. I think they were in the 70s, and so there's progress. Like I said, you get beat pretty good, but you watch the tape, and there's things to build your confidence from, and then definitely things you've got to get fixed.
Okay.
Jonathan, you had it with Nick Marsh at Maryland. Ohio State's had it with Jeremiah Smith all year, and then you saw what Alabama with a 17-year-old is doing. Is it something about that position, or just guys more gifted, they're more advanced, they can come in and do it right away?
Well, I think those guys are gifted, without question, and they don't come around that often, that young, to be so impactful. But I mean, seeing it in person, and we feel great where Marsh is at and where he can go. I don't know if it's just the receiver position or anything, but those guys are talented.
Also, another player in the playing group, Ben Roberts, showed some ability there that maybe in the spring game, I don't know if you saw it there or not, but it looked like he was ready to play on Saturday.
He's been working, and again, he's part of that group. We've been rotating a good amount of the D line to keep him fresh and all that, and he's part of that group. We trust and we make it physical, and I was excited for him to get out there and play. Thanks, guys.